Did you know that the Mycenaean civilization was one of the most influential cultures of the Late Bronze Age? Flourishing around 1700 to 1100 BCE, the Mycenaeans reached their peak from the 15th to the 13th century BCE. Their reach extended throughout the Peloponnese in Greece and across the Aegean from Crete to the Cycladic Islands. The Mycenaeans are named after their main city, Mycenae, located in the Argolid region of the northeast Peloponnese. But have you ever wondered what influenced the Mycenaean civilization? It was the earlier Minoan civilization, which flourished from 2000 to 1450 BCE. Originating in Knossos, Crete, the Minoans spread their influence across the Aegean. The Mycenaeans adopted and adapted Minoan architecture, art, and religious practices to fit their more militaristic culture. They soon dominated most of mainland Greece and several islands, extending their trade to places like Cyprus, the Levant, and Egypt. Their influence was so significant that they left a lasting impression on later Greek cultures, especially through myths of heroes like Achilles and Odysseus and their adventures in the Trojan War. However, do you know where the major centers of Mycenaean civilization were? Besides Mycenae, other key centers included Tiryns, Pylos, Thebes, Medea, Glia, Orchomenos, Argos, Sparta, and even Athens. The Mycenaeans eventually established themselves on Crete, taking over from the Minoans as the dominant culture in the southern Aegean by the second half of the 15th century BCE. Did you know that the Mycenaean Megaron was the precursor to the later archaic and classical temples of Greece? The Megaron, a large rectangular hall, was the heart of the palace and often the throne room of the ruler or wanax. It included an entrance porch, a vestibule, and the hall itself, which contained a large circular hearth supported by 4 wooden columns. The palaces were richly decorated with frescoes and had plaster-painted floors, rubble fill, and cross-beamed walls. The Mycenaeans were also skilled traders. They traded goods like gold, ivory, copper, and glass with other Aegean cultures. Mycenaean pottery has been found as far away as Egypt, Mesopotamia, the Levant, Anatolia, Sicily, and Cyprus. Have you ever heard of the Uluburun shipwreck? This 14th century BCE vessel was carrying raw material trade goods and was likely on its way to Mycenaean Greece before it sank off the coast of Turkey. However, do you wonder what happened to the Mycenaean civilization? Their collapse occurred in stages from around 1230 BCE to 1100 BCE. Several sites were destroyed between 1250 and 1200 BCE, leading to the post-palatial period when centralized palace control declined. Scholars debate the reasons for their decline, suggesting natural disasters, overpopulation, internal unrest, invasions, and climate change as possible causes. Did you know that ancient Greece was made up of over 1,000 city-states, each with its own unique way of life? These city-states, known as polis, were fascinating places with a lot of character and history. But what made them so special? But why were there so many city-states, and why didn't they just form one big country? Well, the geography of Greece played a big role. The land was rocky and mountainous, and there were many islands. These natural barriers made it hard for people to travel and communicate, so each city-state developed on its own. The sea was often the easiest way to get around. Plus, the Greek aristocracy wanted to keep their power and independence, so they preferred to rule their own small areas rather than one large kingdom. Each city-state had its own way of governing. Athens, for example, was known for its democracy, where every male citizen could vote. Can you imagine having a say in how your city was run? On the other hand, Sparta was all about strength and military power. It was ruled by 2 kings and a council of elders, and its citizens were trained to be warriors from a young age. What do you think it would be like to grow up in such different places? Even though the city-states were all part of Greece, they often had different interests and ways of life. Corinth was a hub of trade and wealth, while Thebes was known for its powerful army. The variety among the city-states made ancient Greece a vibrant and dynamic place. Now let's switch gears to Sparta. What comes to your mind when you think of Sparta? Probably warriors and strength, right? Sparta was indeed a powerhouse with the strongest army in ancient Greece. All Spartan men trained to be soldiers from a young age. They didn't just fight, they loved sports too, especially foot races. Unlike democratic Athens, Sparta was ruled by 2 kings and a group of elders. Their society was structured in tiers, the Spartans at the top, the Perioikoi in the middle, and the Helots, who worked the land, at the bottom. Today, Sparta is a small town in southern Greece, a far cry from its ancient glory. Sparta was home to 3 main groups of people: the Spartiates, full citizens who were warriors; the Helots, who were essentially slaves; and the Perioeci, free non-citizens who were craftsmen and traders. These Perioeci made weapons for the Spartans and played a crucial role in their society. Did you know that all healthy Spartan men went through a rigorous state-sponsored education system called the agoge? This system was all about teaching obedience, endurance, courage, and self-control. From a young age, Spartan boys were trained to be soldiers, leaving their homes at age 7 to live in communal barracks. Can you imagine leaving home so young to train as a warrior? But the warrior spirit wasn't limited to Greece alone. It flourished in other ancient civilizations as well, such as China. If you're curious about ancient China, we have a video on our channel that delves into its fascinating history. Why not check it out? Moving on, Spartan society was heavily reliant on the Helots, who did all the labor-intensive work such as farming and domestic chores. The Spartans treated the Helots harshly to keep them subdued, even allowing young Spartan men to kill any Helots they deemed too smart or too fit. It's chilling to think about how oppressive their lives must have been. Now, let's talk about the Spartan military. Unlike other Greek city-states like Athens, which was known for its arts and philosophy, Sparta was all about war. Spartan soldiers, or hoplites, were highly trained and disciplined. They fought in a phalanx formation, working together in a tightly packed group. Picture them with their bronze helmets, breastplates, and red cloaks, marching into battle as one formidable unit. And what about the women of Sparta? Surprisingly, they enjoyed more freedoms compared to other Greek women. They received formal education, engaged in athletic competitions, and could own property. Spartan women were independent and strong, qualities that were encouraged by their society. Marriage in Sparta was unique too. Spartan men lived in barracks until they were 30, so they had to sneak away at night to visit their wives. Women, in preparation for marriage, shaved their heads and kept their hair short after they wed. Imagine such a tradition in today's world. Sparta's decline began with a significant defeat by the Thebans at the Battle of Leuctra in 371 BC. This loss marked the end of Sparta's dominance. Over time, Sparta faded into history, and today, the modern town of Spartai stands where ancient Sparta once thrived. Isn't it fascinating to see how the Spartans lived such disciplined and austere lives, all in the name of their state? Their legacy, both remarkable and ruthless, continues to captivate our imaginations. What part of Spartan life do you find most interesting? Now imagine walking through the bustling streets of Athens, surrounded by a diverse mix of people. Who would you see? The society was dominated by male citizens, each playing a unique role. These men had full legal rights, could vote, hold public office, and own property. But did you know they were split into 3 main groups? First, there were the landed aristocrats, or aristoi. They lived in comfort, their fields brimming with crops. Then there were the poorer farmers known as perioikoi. They owned less productive lands, further away from the city's hustle and bustle. Can you imagine the difference in their daily lives compared to the aristoi? In between these two groups was the middle class. These were the artisans and traders, busy with manufacturing, trade, and commerce. Think about the vibrant markets filled with goods and the sounds of haggling traders. Doesn't it paint a lively picture? But what about the women, children, and slaves? Women were part of these male groups but didn't have the same rights. They couldn't vote or own property. How different must their lives have been? Children, typically under 18, had their own roles too. And then there were the slaves, or douloi, who had various civil or military duties. Their lives were likely the hardest of all. Foreigners also had a place in Athenian society. Non-residents, called xenoi, and foreign residents, known as metoikoi, lived below male citizens in status. What challenges might they have faced in this structured society? But did you know that Western philosophy began in ancient Greece? It's true! Imagine living in a time where questioning everything was encouraged. This period, stretching from the 6th century BC to the 6th century AD, was full of brilliant minds shaping how we think today. Curious about who these thinkers were? Ever heard of Socrates? He lived from 469 to 399 BC and is often called the father of Western philosophy. His approach was simple but powerful. He asked questions, lots of them. By questioning people's beliefs, he helped them think deeper and clearer. Can you see how asking the right questions can lead to great discoveries? Now, let's talk about Plato. He was a student of Socrates and lived from 428 to 348 BC. Plato had a fascinating idea called the theory of forms. According to him, the world we see isn't the real world. The real world is beyond our senses, and what we see is just a shadow of true reality. Then there's Aristotle, who lived from 384 to 322 BC. He was a student of Plato but had his own ideas. Aristotle was a jack of all trades, making contributions to logic, biology, ethics, politics, and much more. Zeno, living around 490 to 430 BC, loved paradoxes. His puzzles challenged people to think in new ways. For example, how can an arrow ever reach its target if it has to cover half the distance first, then half of the remaining distance, and so on? Makes you think, right? And that's it for today. Thanks for exploring ancient Greece with us. If you enjoyed learning about its influential philosophers and want to dive into another fascinating civilization, check out our video on ancient China next. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more historical insights. Happy watching!